people are delightful, and there's nothing really nasty in the Caribbean. I mean, like, we've actually even got rid of the mosquitoes on our island, so so we're quite pleased about that. But just a vibrant, wonderful people. So we set up this School of Entrepreneurship. We first of all set it up in South Africa, where it was really needed. I mean, in the townships of South Africa. And then, you know, we thought we live in the Caribbean, we should set it up in the Caribbean. Our airline flies to the Caribbean. And we were lucky. We found a wonderful lady to run it. There are a lot of very entrepreneurial-minded people in Jamaica. So what we do with the centre is try to give them a leg up. Find them mentors. Give them as much advice as we can. But in the end, an entrepreneur, if they're a real entrepreneur, they just have to learn on the job is the best way of learning. Just getting on and getting your hands dirty and creating your business. But I think we can help a few more companies succeed that wouldn't necessarily succeed without that help.
Okay. And by way of expansion, thinking about what we've done so far with the Branson Center, what do you see as the plans for the Branson Center?
Well, I'd love to see it throughout the rest of the Caribbean. We've opened it in the British Virgin Islands now. We'd love to see it in other countries in the Caribbean. We'd love to see it more online as well. Those were the two main things.
Okay. In talking with entrepreneurship, in talking with entrepreneurs about entrepreneurship, there are many pain points, there are many challenges, there are many concerns that business owners have, particularly around team building and about staffing, about customer service. Is there any advice that you could give in terms of any of those areas?
How many people are in this room are entrepreneurs? Hey, a lot. Okay. So I think quite early on when you're an entrepreneur, I think the most important thing you can do is find someone better than you and get them to run the company on a day-to-day basis. It's not an easy thing for entrepreneurs to do. They like to hold on for years and years and years. But I think the best bit of advice I can give is, find the time to find someone to run your company on a day-to-day basis. Even to the extent of then walking away from the company, going and working from home or something, for a while, so that all the sort of day-to-day problems of the company goes to the person you put in there. You can then think about the bigger picture. You can then become, if you want, you can become a serial entrepreneur. You can move on. You can move the company. You can move into another area. You can dive in and firefight when things are going wrong. You can find the time to go and do the really big deals that the company needs. The trouble is that people always want to see the top person in the building, and if you're always there as the top person, then it's difficult. It's difficult for you to really expand the company forward. Now, having said that, there are people out there that most people out there don't follow that rule, and a lot of them have done extremely well not following that rule. Right. But it's definitely something that I would advise people to consider. And I've had talks like this before, when a year or two later people have come up to me and said, "Look, the best thing you've done for me was give me that advice, because I've managed to have a life, I've managed to spend time with my family, I've managed to keep fit, I've managed to push the company forward into new areas." If you're going to find somebody, make sure they're good with people. You can bring somebody in that can completely destroy a company. Yeah. So make sure they're really great motivators of people. Sometimes an entrepreneur, it could well be in this room, some of the entrepreneurs in this room, actually the natural thing that is not necessarily being a great motivator of people. So that could be another reason for finding someone to do that job. I know some real pain in the butts entrepreneurs who definitely should be finding somebody else to work between them and their staff. And you know, the kind of people they want to find, I think, are people who genuinely care about people, who you know, who treat, you know, people are no different than plants. If you water a plant, it flourishes. If you don't, it shrivels up. And the same applies to people.
Well, let's go in a totally different direction with this next thought. Totally different direction. So I want to talk to you a little bit about climate change, and more specifically as to how climate change is possibly affecting entrepreneurial prospects in the Caribbean. What are your thoughts on that?
If somebody's got a white coat and they happen to be in Washington, if they could knock on a certain door and maybe give that white coat to the recipient living in that behind that door and march them off and lock them up for a while. I think that would be a very good idea. Because you know, I think that you know, I think it is incredible that in this day and age where we believe in scientific knowledge, that you can have somebody in that position of responsibility who does not believe in scientific knowledge, and you know, it just goes without saying that the carbon that's going up in the Earth's atmosphere is creating a blanket around our Earth. That blanket is getting thicker every year. The world is heating up, and that is going to do tremendous damage. The beautiful reefs in the Caribbean, they will be destroyed. The sea levels, they will rise. The Arctic, you know, will melt. You know, the enormous amount of refugees are going to be created. And we've seen the misery of Syria. You know, that's going to happen, you know, all over the world. I mean, Bangladesh will be underwater and so on. So we have to do something about it. And we were on, you know, when the Paris talks finished, and I was actually at the Paris talks with a lot of very eminent American business people and other business people persuading governments to make sure that we got the deal done. When they finished, it really looked like the world had finally come to its senses. By 2050, we would be carbon neutral, and we might be able to avoid a lot of the things I just talked about. So the statement that came out of America last week was definitely a big setback. Fortunately, the cost of solar has now collapsed to such a level that it's almost half the price of coal. The wind is coming down to that kind of level. Battery power is coming. You know, in 2 or 3 years' time, the new range of batteries that are coming are going to be really good. So I think that us business leaders and entrepreneurs need to see this as an opportunity. We need to get out there and create energy businesses, and we need to do it without, you know, without the American government's help, and step in and just basically save the world from what could be a disaster.
And that response clearly speaks to the fact that in as much as many of us go into business to actually make profit, we really have to do good in the world, and we have to contribute to the spaces where we live in. So I really appreciate that comment from you. Thank you very much for that.
I think, as I said, a business is, you know, I mean, business, people go into business to make profit, but every single person in this room, you know, somebody said in a talk earlier today that an entrepreneur is an artist. I mean, and you're creating something magical, that is helping other people. So the only way you're going to make a profit is if you have created something magical that's going to magically help people. And so every business has generally got a purpose. There are obviously some businesses that have an even greater purpose. And I mean, at Virgin, for instance, we now are trying only to invest in businesses that, sort of, have a purpose multiple of 10. I mean, they've got to make a real difference in the world, and then we feel our time is worthwhile spent. But that doesn't necessarily mean they make less money. It just means that, with the money that we've got, the limited amount of money we've got, we invest in things which are going to make a real major purpose, and we actually try to calculate what that purpose is.
And you talk about magic. So clearly some magic happened when you started your businesses. Looking back, what would you tell your 16-year-old self?
I would tell him to invent a pill quickly, never to get older. Because it's good fun being 16. One can misbehave outrageously and not get into trouble. Yeah, so I think that would be the number one priority. Now let me think. I mean, I've been fortunate. I wouldn't change a thing in my life. I've been really lucky finding this great lady, and we've been together 40 years, and we've got children. And of course, a lot of people will not be that lucky. I mean, but it is magical if you finding the right partner is so important, and finding the right father or mother for your children is so important, and that's one of the biggest decisions you can make. And it's not an easy one, and a lot of people get it wrong.
Yes.
But the great thing about holding a family together is, you hold your friends together, I've just got 4 grandchildren, all aged about 2. That's definitely magical. But I think I would tell my 16-year-old. As you get older, you realise that fitness is really important, and staying healthy, and I do that by having a lot of fun. So I kite surf. Anybody kite surf in this room?
Please.
Have you got up on the foil board yet? So I love to play sports and tennis and kiting and things, and that's another wonderful advantage of living in this kind of climate. I've had a lot of adventures throughout my life. I mean, I think my motto is, I'm known as Dr. Yes, and I very rarely say no to anything. And oh my God, I'm in the phone business, mobile phone business, and sorry, that's my son. I'm ready. Oh, hi, Harvey. Hey, how are you doing? I'm in Jamaica. I'm in Kingston. Well, the last time I picked up a phone from my daughter, which she was telling me that she just passed her exams with flying colours. She's now a little bit older. Anyway, say hello to Holly, will you? Hi, Holly! Do you want me to ring you back? Nothing urgent. Right. Holly says hi to you all. I love you. Cheers, bye.
Now, if there's one thing I can tell you...
Well, that's quite appropriate. We're just talking about family.
Well, as we wrap up, there's one last thought I'd like you to leave with our audience. And that thought is, considering the state of the world, what are you most hopeful about?
Look, I've been around a while, when you look at 24-hour news, you can get really depressed. And when you see, some of the people that get elected in this world, you get really depressed. But and then when you see some of these people running countries who didn't get elected, you can get really depressed. Having said all that, every decade over the last 50 years, the world has got dramatically better. And a lot of that's down to entrepreneurs around the world. So the amount of people dying from famine is reduced every decade. The amount of people dying from disease is reduced dramatically. The amount of people dying from starvation is reduced dramatically. And the amount of people who were illiterate is reduced dramatically. The amount of women that lose their children at childbirth is reduced dramatically. And so it goes on. So, and I think that I think that with all these people in this room and others around the world, that trend will continue. I think the Sustainable Development Goals, which have followed the Millennium Development Goals, I think they're highly deliverable. And if we can deliver on those, and it's going to take businesses around the world to do that, that's going to take, even the next 2 decades could be tremendously exciting. What can be achieved. So I'm generally really positive, and I think the sort of 2 big worries in the world, climate change. I think that fortunately, as I said earlier, that there have been breakthroughs in technology that that I hope and think will hopefully sort out that problem. But again, I think the people in this room, a lot of people should think about, energy is such an important part of the world of going into that as a business. And then conflicts, which even although again you'd think when you looked at the horrible situation in Syria that conflicts were worse now than they've been in the past. Actually, every decade the amount of conflicts in the world has reduced. We have a wonderful organisation called the Elders that Kofi Annan heads up, and Nelson Mandela used to head up. They go into conflict regions and try to resolve conflicts. But of course, conflict should never start in the first place. They're completely unnecessary to start in the first place. And most of the conflicts since I've been born should never have started. The Vietnam War, the Iraq War, Afghanistan, Libya, and so on. And the misery that's been caused by those wars is sort of unforgivable. And histories, we've all got to learn from that and make sure that that future conflicts do not start. And we ought to be able to use our intelligence to knock heads together and avoid them. So, very hopeful, and wish you all the best in this room, and have a wonderful time in Jamaica, and misbehave atrocious Liz, as I would do if I was your age. And thank you very much. That's great.
Thank you.
Okay.